Alright, back again, Luke here. And as you can see in front of you, these are those two Beastbuster guns that I have mounted to my homemade control panel here. This will be part 2. If you guys didn't see part 1, you can check that out. But what I'm in the process here of doing is trying to fix up these guns. Now, the potentiometers here are off. They're not registering correctly. And the gun, as you can see, it's not supposed to wobble like side to side like that. Back and forth, okay. Like turning is okay, but it wobbles way too much, so we're gonna have to adjust that. On top of that, the wiring harness here for one of the controls, you can probably see here, the wiring harness is quite long and actually has the ends attached to it. For the other one, it's quite short and everything's cut. So what I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna have to splice in some wire here and try to extend this wire harness, put a couple of clips on the end there too so we can get this thing plugged in and test it out. But this is the current stage that it's in right now, and we're going to get on trying to splice in some wires here, see if I can find some extra wire laying around. But I'll be back in a little bit. Alright, so as you can see here, I've got some of these cables all patched in here, so that's ready to go. What I'm in the process of doing next here is I'm going to try and make a connector. I have a bunch of broken clips around here that were used at one point in time for something or another, but what I'm going to do is try and remove the colors here and put it on this 13-pin clip so I can replicate the same colors on this one here, and that way it'll make it easier to hook up to the rest of the harness. So I'm going to get on that right now and try and move around some of these wires here and see if we can get a similar pattern to this one. So we'll be back in a little bit. Alright, so as you guys can see here, what I'm in the process of doing is putting on some shrink tubing here and trying to heat that up and get these wires to connect. I used a lot of recycled wire that I had here, so I can cut down on the amount of wire that I have to go out and buy brand new. And this stuff still works, it still has really good continuity, so I decided to use that. But the kind of downfall to that is you get some, patched colors that look a little bit different than what they normally should, but for the purpose that it's being used for, it really shouldn't matter so much. So what I'm doing here is I got my little shrink tubing, just cover up the soldered point here, and get my heat gun, and we'll try and heat this up. And there we go. So we got that one all shrunk up, and we'll go and get the last one here for this side. Something, when you go to do something like this, make sure that you put the tubing on before you finish soldering. It can be sometimes tricky if you go and solder and you have the two ends connected and then you're like, oh no, I forgot to put the tubing on. So it does happen from time to time, even for myself. I've done it before, but and this heat gun here is extremely hot. It's like, what, 400 degrees or something similar to that. So it's definitely something that you do not want to touch while you're doing this. It does get extremely hot. But as you can see, we've got all our wires connected up here. And I have two wires here that are not connected, and these are for the vibration here. And I'm going to have to try and check this thing out and see what's going on with it. But once I get everything else hooked up and wired up and configured. But for the time being, this is the setup. So I have this wire harness all hooked up here. So it's, like I said, it's made from some scrap parts, but it will definitely do the trick. Numbers 1 through 4 here aren't used. Those are for a kind of light gun chip that goes inside the guns, but since this is for the Beastbusters, it doesn't use it, so it's good. And there's the original one here, which had also had the vibration, was it the solenoid cut, the wires for that. So there's something wrong with the solenoids, and just to be on the safe side, I didn't hook up this one as well. I'll probably hook this one up later once I can find some new solenoids, or once I can figure out what's wrong with the old ones. But so far, the whole wiring setup is complete, and you guys can probably see here are the two strands of wires and the two sets of hooks here. that we'll be using for this. Now the next thing to do will be to come over here and try to adjust everything. Like I said, these guns are a little bit too wobbly. They're a bit sloppy here, and they're going to need some adjustment on the bottom and on the sides here on the front. And then we'll get to trying to adjust these pots through the game, hopefully. But you guys can see a little bit of a look on the inside there. Somebody had gone in here before me, and you can see they had done some soldering there. Not the best job, but it seems to be holding, so it's okay. And there's the solenoid. So, and the trigger there, and this is where there would be another chip that would connect up here. And the scope, interestingly enough, you know, that's the way it is. It's all duct taped or electrical taped up here, but this is where the sensor would go. And then the sensor would shine through the end of the scope there, and that would be that. But yeah, we're going to get on this next step here of trying to calibrate these things and see if we can get that done. But let's get on that, and I'll be back in a little bit. Alright, so as you can see here, we've got the cables all kind of wound up here, and we've got all the connectors on there, so this stuff is ready to go. And it's got a little bit of this plastic shielding around the outside to kind of keep the cables all in place. But that's all mounted in there. Got this thing kind of mounted up in the top there, so that's ready to go. All we have to do next is try and work out these guns here and try and calibrate everything. So that's what we'll work on next, trying to get these things to be a little bit more stable instead of kind of moving so much. But we'll jump on that and be back in a bit. Okay, so as you can see here, I'm in the process of trying to calibrate these guns, and in order to get into this test mode here, what I have to do is I have to flip dip switch number 8 on the dip switch settings there for dip switch set number 2, and then once I have that on 8, then it'll go into the manual dip switch settings where you can actually change around some of the stuff and calibrate the guns. To change around the different settings, you have to press the start button on controller 1, but what we're going to do here is just try and see if we can get this thing to calibrate. I haven't tried this yet, so I'm not sure if it's going to work out very well or not. But we'll see. See what we can do. As far as getting the aim on this thing, that's the difficult part. Let's see. Alright. Well, that's going to be really challenging. Alright, well it looks like player 1 may be calibrated. We'll see. I guess all the way up, in the middle, and the bottom. Now for player 3, since I don't have player 3, what I'm going to have to do is use gun number 2 and possibly just switch that around and calibrate gun number 2 on player 3's setup. This is the tricky part, so I'm going to have to disconnect this and then switch it back up. So I'll be back in a little bit here. Alright, so as you can see here, I tried to swap over the controls here for player 3 to try and get that hooked up. And once I did, I was able to shoot the first 2, but when I got down to the last point here, it said that the player 1 gun error calibration issue. So what I'm going to have to do here is maybe trick the system into thinking that it's got 3 guns on it by physically connecting 1 controller to 2 points. I'm not sure how this is going to work, but we're going to have to try and do something here because this thing's not registering, or not letting me register. So I'm going to go through this one more time and see what we can do. But yeah, this is the current situation here, so I'll be back in a little bit. Alright, so what I've done so far is I've gone over all of these pots here and taken them out and readjusted them here. They seem to be off on all sides, on the 2 on this one and especially the 2 on this one. This one was a replaced pot, but unfortunately this pot was wiggling around just because there wasn't anything holding it into place. Even though I had tightened the nut that was on the end there, it was still moving around, so I got out a bit of flux and some solder, and I was able to solder the tab down to keep it in place, so that one's in place right now. But still having some issues here as far as the game wanting to reset or telling me that it's not working because one of the guns is out, and it seems to be gun number 1. What I've done is I've tried to use gun number 2 here to see if I could set it. It didn't work, but those were both before I had tried to adjust this, so we'll see. According to the manual here though, that I printed out, if you take a look at it, it actually does tell you about two possible issues that this could be. One of those issues being the guns themselves. There could be a problem with the guns, or there could be a problem with the board. So I'm not sure which one it is, but we're gonna have to see what we can do about fixing it and trying to get some spare parts. So yeah, this one just talks about how a lot of people were complaining. Even it says in the manual about how many people complain about not being able to get this to work. And what the manual actually does recommend is, it says take just one gun and just move it around to each one of the different gun harnesses here for like player 2 and player 3. Then pull the trigger and calibrate everything, make sure that it's okay. And if everything's okay, then the EEPROM will say right, complete. But if it's not, then it'll come up with a warning or an error that won't allow you to start the game. So what I've got is I've got the board kind of sitting here, and what I'm going to do is just go through each one of these and try and reseat everything and see what we get. Hopefully we'll be able to get it to work, but I'm just going to try one gun here, see what happens. But let's fire this beast on. Alright. Okay, you can see the error here. That's I need to turn the dip switch on. Let's see, dip switch 8. Alright, let's try that. Alright, there's our crosshatch. 1, 2, 3. Let's see. So 1, 2, 3. Let's try and switch this out to player 2. This is the tricky part here. Okay, let's try this again. 1, 2, 3, and we'll try the last one. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, and still player 1 gun error. So that's still popping up there. So I think there's something wrong with the board, unfortunately. And you know, if I wouldn't have gone into this calibration setting here for the game, it would have just played normally. You know, the intro of the game would have played, but since I've gone into the calibration settings here, each time it said that player 1's gun is not working right, and it does it with both of these guns. And no matter what you do, even if you decide to take off the gun harnesses here, and if we try and flip the dip switch back up, turn it on, it won't start the game. It says player 1's gun error. So that's the problem here. So what I'm gonna have to do is look for some parts and see what I can do about picking something up for this. I really have no clue exactly what is wrong with it on the top board here, but something is wrong. So we'll get on that and see what we can find, and hopefully we can find some spare parts to replace it. But yeah, let's get on that and see what happens. Alright, so after going over all these pots here and trying to see if they were good, they all did put out a reading, and they were pretty consistent as far as the resistance went on it. These pots here are 5K pots, and unfortunately when I went to try and cross-reference the numbers that are on the original ones here, these are the original pots over here, and they have the, what was it, RVQ24 Y N02. These pots, I tried to cross-reference them, and I came up with a couple of hits on eBay. And when I checked the ones on eBay, it was pretty insane, because the ones that cross-referenced these guns here were $42 or $43 each per pot. So they're really high-quality pots. I know that sounds really bad, but The potentiometers are really, really high quality, and they have about 10 million turns to them, which is pretty amazing. Really high standard potentiometer, but unfortunately at like I said, about $50 per potentiometer, I got 1, 2, 3, 4, you know, $200. What I also decided to do is, since I couldn't get these things to engage either one of them, and I know that the odds of both of these being bad could be slightly high, but the fact that it's not doing anything, these couldn't be calibrated, I mean, exactly, you know, off. And that's the one thing I'm kind of concerned about, is the fact that these guns are probably, maybe at least one of these guns is functioning correctly, but the top part of this board, or a part of this board, is not. And if you guys remember, I wound up repairing this part over here that was bad. That's the reason why the board wouldn't come on when I first got it. And got it to turn on, but there could have been another part on the board that was shocked, or another part on the board that was yeah, not working when that gave out. So what I've done is I've luckily been able to find another top board here for this one, and since this is a 3-board sandwich, I've been able to find the top one and the bottom one. The middle one wasn't available, but I bought those, and hopefully they'll be in within the next, I don't know, 14 days or so, 2 weeks, and we'll try that out. We'll see if we can swap off the top and see if we can get that going, because it'd be really nice if it did work. If not, then what I'm going to have to do is just, you know, bite the bullet and pick up some pots for this and see if we can get it to work. I did notice that there were other pots that were similar that could be used for this. These are the linear pots and the radial type, and they generally can be found for, I think, around, I don't know, maybe $10 each or less, depending on the store or where you're located. But unfortunately, as of right now, I'm not able to pick those up. So this is going to be the next set. What I did is I wound up picking up the top board and the bottom board. I got both of those for like, was it like $30 each? But the shipping was about another 40 or 45. So it was like 35 and 45 or so. So it came out to be about $100. Plus the, what was it, the tax that was on the top there. So, but yeah, so there was about, you know, $100 for the couple of boards, but that's much better than the $200 for the 4 pots here, and not knowing if the top board's faulty or not. So what I'm going to do is try and, you know, maybe just tinker around with this a little bit more from time to time until the other board comes in, until I can actually physically test the other one, and hopefully that one comes in one piece. But if that doesn't work, then we'll go back and try and mess around with the potentiometers on this and see if we can get that going. But just thought I'd share this with you guys here. And yeah, for right now, we're going to put the whole Beastbuster setup, we're going to put that aside. We'll work on some other projects that I got around here, try and clean up the room a little bit, and get back on some gameplay videos as well. But that's about all for me for right now. Like always, I'll put up another video here soon. So thanks for watching. Do, 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 do.